Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked on BC, I am your host, AJ Black. Today is one of those mailbag episodes. Sometimes I go out there and I ask and I only get a few questions. Today, the mailbag is exploding like Santa's sack full of letters from kids. I got so many questions from basketball to recruiting to transfer portal to Quinten Post to Earl Grant to Jeff Hafley, the coaching hot seat. You name it, we have it. I'm going to get into it today. If you are in the comment section, if you have a question throughout the show, you can throw it in the comment section as well. If I have time, I will try to get to those as well. Our first question today comes from Tim on Twitter, who says, what are your expectations for year 3 under Grant? Do you expect most guys to return next year? Plus thoughts on incoming freshman potential transfers in. Feel like the team is 1 or 2 guys away from being a tournament team, assuming Quinten Post is back. So yeah, I think that's the biggest question, right? This team is a completely different team when Quinten Post is back. If he comes back next year, and that is a gigantic if, this team will be tournament. I think they'll be a tournament team next year. I am confident enough that they have the guys next year to do what they need to do to be tournament eligible. Because as I've said, this year, if Post played, they would have won 4 or 5 more games, and take those away from the losses, they would have been a 20-win team. This year, you lose. You're going to probably lose. You're going to obviously lose Mekhi Ashton Langford. He is out of eligibility. He'll be gone, and that's a big loss. He's a good player. You're going to also lose, I believe, CJ Penna, who's a depth player. You're not going to miss too much there. And I imagine you're going to have 1 or 2 guys enter the transfer portal. Who those guys are, I'm not sure. There might be a guy on that roster that feels like he can, might find another program that fits him better. I don't know. I'm not going to speculate on who that will be, but it's just the way that the cookie crumbles in college sports right now that you just got to expect you're going to lose 1 or 2 guys. So next year, and this leads into a question that we also had from another reader, and I will get to that in a second. You have 2 freshmen coming in. I'll get into their names later. And I imagine they'll also bring in 1 or 2 transfers. But no matter what BC brings in next year, and I think they could use it, they're going to need a big. This is all talking like as if Quinten Post is coming back. If they have Post, they need a big behind him. You could do Bickerstaff, but I think you need another big guy to kind of go with that. So I think you're going to need a big, but the biggest acquisition they're going to get next year is Donald Hand coming back, because I think he adds a whole other dynamic to this team. He's an outside shooter. He can shoot deep threes. He can do a lot of that perimeter things that you don't really have, that you have a need for on this roster. So you bring Hand, you got Post, you're going to have a starting 5 with Zachary. DeMar Langford, I assume, is coming back, and Devin McLaughlin. I like the starting 5 when McLaughlin's out there, because I think he adds a bit of physicality where Post is a little bit more finesse. So I think they're going to be a tournament team next year, and they're showing it right now why they are. I mean, they're on the verge of 10 tournament ACC wins. I think they can do that. So thank you, Tim, for that question. Next question. I got to go quickly through. I got to go, not quickly, but I got to make sure I get through this. Dennis is always in my direct messages on Twitter, and I love him. He's an avid BC fan. He says, my pick for defense, this is more of a comment, and I'm going to let him speak. My pick for defensive coordinator, Hafley himself. Chud runs the O, Half runs the D, and keeps the right returning, and plenty position coaches in place. Plenty of head coaches have both been head coach and coordinator. Given the time frame, this would make a lot of sense. If he survives, he can bring in a defensive coordinator or promote one of his guys after next season. So we are still in that lovely period of the college football season where we don't know who the coordinators are yet. I've asked. Believe me, I've asked. And the report from Football Scoop that it's going to be Chudzinski and Shimko, I'm almost 100% sure that's going to be it. And I've been told, what I have been told, and you guys can take this to the bank, is that both coordinators are already in place doing their work. I don't know why it's not been announced to the public yet. It's just weird. I mean, most other schools, they tell you, there's a guy in place 24 hours after a guy leaves, and we're now on to like 6, 7, almost a month and a half for some of these positions. So, will it be Hafley? I don't know. Maybe we've talked about it on this podcast, but it's an interesting thought. I don't know what you guys think as well. Now, in our comment section, Frank Ryan says, and this is just a comment on what we were just talking about in basketball, Donald Hand is a Winston Tabbs type, both play wise and unfortunately injury wise. I mean, I don't know if I'm going to compare him to Winston Tabbs already. I mean, he just tore his knee up on a fluke play. It happens. So, but we'll wait and see. I mean, if you can play offensively like Winston Tabbs, we're in for a treat, but hopefully they won't have the injury issues there. Next question. Let's continue on. We have, so Pat Crafts Burner on Twitter says, can you go through Earl Grant's incoming class for next year? Pat Crafts Burner, I hope this is not the real Pat Craft. He's too busy over at Penn State, but yeah, I can. So BC has 2 committed freshmen coming in for basketball next year. They've got Fred Payne, who is a combo guard from Texas. And so I think he's going to kind of slot into where all that kind of what Mekhi Ashton Langford did. You've got him there. You've got Chaz Kelly. You've got, Jaden Zachary. You've got, you've got some depth there. And I think you'll see some of the younger guys start to play more. So you'll see probably a start, you get Mason Madsen too, excuse me. But you'll see a lot of the younger guys get more of a chance. Chaz Kelly, his minutes have improved. We talked about him with Mason earlier this week. The other guy that's coming in, the other recruit is Jaden Hastings from IMG Academy. So big time high school program. They're basically a factory for NBA and college players. He's a 6'10" forward/center. What I've heard about him, kind of the same thing I heard about Armani Mighty, who is their freshman center right now, is that he is good. He's very good defensively, but limited on offense, which seems to be a lot of the guys that Earl Grant gets. And you know what? Fine. As long as Armani Mighty can take a step up next year and be ready, or Hastings can get ready faster. But he's a guy with a lot of good offers. I'm not saying that this is a bad kid or anything like that. Both of these kids are recruits that had a lot of interest. Fred Payne got a lot of interest after the summer circuit. BC offered really quick. Credit to Earl Grant for getting some early feelers out on him and grabbed him before he blew up. So that was a good one. And Hastings obviously is at IMG Academy. So credit to Grant and his staff for being able to go out there and do some of that recruiting that I think has really helped. Now, in a moment, I'm going to look at some questions about Quinten Post. We'll look at some questions about Jeff Hafley and his job security. And if you have questions, hit them up in the comment section. I want to talk about those as well. Now, what I want to also tell you about is FanDuel. It's the midway point of the NBA season, and it's here, and it's the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scores and threes drained. And you can get into that NBA action this weekend if there's games you want to get into. I love using FanDuel. It's super easy to use, and best of all, you get your money right away. So head on over to FanDuel. Don't miss a chance to get your no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. So one thing I wanted to talk about was someone brought up, and I thought it was a perfect opportunity on a mailbag type episode, was the recent comments that Miami Dolphins head coach Mike McDaniel made about firing Matt Applebaum. And so he was asked about it at a press conference. He asked about both coaching moves he made. He fired somebody else too, or let go of somebody else. And I thought that I would share what SI.com's Miami site said about Applebaum. So basically, they broke down the comments. It says, when it comes to the offensive line coach move, which Applebaum replaced after 1 year on the job, McDaniel said it had more to do with Frank Smith, their offensive coordinator. As we have suggested before, Smith was heavily involved with coaching the offensive line last year after Applebaum was hired out of Boston College. McDaniel said that needed to change, and the implication clearly was that Applebaum was not ready to be a full-time NFL offensive line coach. Then he says, this is the quote from McDaniel. Realistically, from the way the staff was orchestrated the previous year, I really needed to get more offensive coordinator work out of Frank Smith, and he was devoted a little too much to the offensive line, McDaniel said. And I needed more selfishly to alleviate some stuff off my plate. And so that was the motivating factor to make that move, was to facilitate Frank Smith being able to appropriate his time more as a coordinator and less in the offensive line room. Ouch. So basically, what that's saying, what McDaniels is saying is basically Frank Smith had to help Applebaum out for being an offensive line, doing his offensive line job. That's not a good thing to hear. That you had a guy in the NFL and his offensive coordinator basically had to help him through his job. A little worrisome, I got to say, hearing things like that. But we'll have to wait and see how that plays out on BC's side. So that was a great question. What was his name? Derek. Thank you for putting that in my mailbox, so I got to hear exactly what was said. Next, continuing on, let's go to our Facebook group. John B says, does Quinten Post have more eligibility? It was stated he had 3 years after leaving MSU. He does. Quinten Post does have more eligibility left. He has 1 more year. So hopefully it will be at Boston College. Hopefully Quinten Post is not going to get picked up by some blue blood and taken to a powerhouse school. I mean, obviously there's going to be some interest in him, and he was non-committal. I heard a press conference with him. I think it was after the UVA, either after the UVA game or something after recently, and he said something about being, he didn't want to talk about it right now. So hopefully Friends of the Heights has their checkbook open, because he's going to be the absolute key to the future of Boston College basketball. You need him. You need to figure out how to get him to stay here, and hopefully he will be able to do that. Next question, DJ Fullerton on Twitter. Do you see the football team in a bowl game? And if so, is Hafley's job safe? So yes, I've said I'm much more on the less pessimistic side. I know you guys are surprised. I am. I see things a lot more positively sometimes, and it's sometimes I try to make it so it's not a fault, but we'll have to see with this season. But let's throw out a question here. If he goes 6-6 with the schedule the way that it's currently set up, does that keep Jeff Hafley's job? I think it all depends on how the school and the administration see how Hafley's improving the program. That's my bottom line. BC fired Steve Adazio for topping out at 6-6. If at year 4 Jeff Hafley is topping out at 6-6 again, I mean, if the administration feels the same way, maybe they do make that move. So that's my kind of thought there at 6-6. And you maybe, it all depends on how they see it. If they think that he's doing a good job of building a culture, blah, 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 I don't think he'll get fired if they make a bowl. But if they're like, if there's stuff behind the scenes that we're not hearing about, and maybe the administration doesn't agree with the way he's doing something or something, he could obviously get fired. I think that's a potential. 7-5 and up, he's keeping his job. If he goes 7-5 this year, he's not losing his job. I can tell you that. So great. Thank you so much, DJ. Now, Glenn, another great listener of our show. What two players do I expect to take a large step up this year in football? And what two newcomers do you expect to make the biggest impact? Okay. Biggest step up for BC this year off defensively is going to be Bryce Steele. Here's why. I think he's going to get he is all about being in the right place at the right time. He had moments last year. You started to see where things started to click with Bryce Steele. And yes, it was not consistent at all. I'm not saying he had a good year. He did not. But you saw pieces of it at different times where Steele looked like the guy that could do some big things for BC. So Bryce Steele, I think, will take that next step, and it'll be a big step for him. I think I could see it happening with him. He's one name I want to watch for. And I'm going to continue on the defensive side of the ball for another player to take a big step forward. And I'm going to look at Quan Williams at defensive tackle. Now, defensive tackle is missing Chibuzi Onwuka from last year. You're going to see some new names up there because Isaiah Henderson is gone. Boozy's gone. You're going to have Horsley. You're going to have Owen Stodmeyer. You're going to have Quan Williams. And Chris Banks will be thrown in there as well. I think Quan Williams is going to show you why he was one of the highest rated recruits BC got last year. He's already got his feet wet. We've already seen him start to make some plays. I think he's going to be the next kind of bigger name. I don't want to say big name yet because he hasn't shown me that yet. Bigger name defensive players. I think that'll be it. My answer. So those are my two. In terms of transfers that are going to have big years, give me Alex Washington on defense. I think he's going to step up and become a very good cornerback. I think he's, size-wise, being able to pick up the game, I think he's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And then on the offensive line, I'm ready to see what Kyle Hergel can do. Bruce Feldman had him as one of his athletic freaks just a couple years ago. I love the freak list that he makes up, and Hergel was on it. I think he could be a real kind of mauler down there. I'm excited to see what Hergel can do. I think Logan Taylor is more of a project. I'm not sure what that's going to look like this year, but I think Hergel is he's ready to go. He's going to be a guy that's going to play right off the bat and could be exciting to watch. So those are a few more questions. Then we also have the big question, and I kind of said it already. Jim Day says, what the heck is the story on our new coordinators? I said it, and I'll just repeat it again. They've been hired. Both. It's not that they are BC's dragging their feet hiring them. BC's dragging their feet announcing them. And I don't know why they're dragging their feet announcing them. I heard before that they were already doing their jobs, that there was just some paperwork that was, kind of holding it up, but that shouldn't take this long. I don't know if they're just going to wait, because I know Hafley last year when they hired John McNulty did a press conference. I'm sure on Friday he's going to do a press conference when practice starts up. Might as well just throw them all together so he doesn't have to do a bunch of them. I mean, is that the most enthusiastic coaching choice? No, but maybe that's what he does. I don't know. I don't know why they haven't hired it yet. Honestly, I know it's frustrating as a fan to not know it. But right now, honestly, as long as they're just doing their job, that's all I should care about, right? As long as they're recruiting, doing the work that they need to do, it's nice for us to know. But the big issue is, are they with the team? Are they doing, recruiting, all that good stuff? So thank you for all those questions. And believe me, I would love to know too. I would love to be able to talk about it. And I still don't have the answers yet. So we'll get to that later. All right. In our final segment, my bag is still flowing to the brim. And I see commenters jumping up. So, man, this is going to be a busy third segment full of questions about everything that you want to know. We'll get to that in just a moment. Locked on BC, AJ Black here. First question, I'm going to go to Mitch. You know Mitch. Mitch is one of our favorite staff writers here. And he asked a question on text to me. If BC makes the tournament in 2024, will Earl Grant still be the coach the following season? And I responded to him on text with, great question. And I don't know. I think he will be. Earl Grant to me strikes me as a guy who takes I see him as like, he's happy here. He's loyal. He's a faith-based guy. I mean, he wrote it all over the board after that game yesterday. I think he's happy here. And one season of making the tournament, I mean, I don't see BC as being like a top 20 team next year. I don't think they're going to get no matter what they do, even if they make the tournament, I don't see them trying to poach him. I just don't see it happening yet. And then he says, what about South Carolina? Wouldn't they come calling? I know he's a South Carolina guy. And South Carolina's a freaking mess right now. So maybe, but I don't know. I see him staying with BC, but thank you, Mitch. We'll hopefully have him back on again soon. All right. Continuing in our mailbag, we have some more questions for us. We have Jack asking, why do you think CJ Penna didn't get more time yesterday? He was 3 for 4 with 6 points and 2 big blocks in 10 minutes. Prince got 15 more minutes and wasn't very involved in the offense or a threat to score. I get McLaughlin and TJ Bickerstaff add something differently on the boards and defensively, but the time distribution seemed pretty skewed. Yeah, I agree. I've noticed more and more that, I think you've all noticed that, Grant down the stretch has moved more and more away from Pena, and his minutes have kind of diminished. And before this game, I would have said it was defensive issues, right? You've seen him out there and he's not the most physical defender. And so I was wondering if maybe his defense was the reason why he didn't play him as much, especially against a team like Wake Forest, where he's not the quickest guy and Wake's pretty fast. Maybe he wanted to get a Ligby who's been a better defender, typically. It's an interesting in-game adjustment that I didn't see, right? Like I saw it too, right? Prince Ligby did not look good last night. There was that, I forget who hit the shot. It might have been Appleby, but there was one where he was supposed to, switch off, and he was like 5 feet off of the guy. He was nowhere near where he was supposed to be, and the guy and Wake hit a wide open 3-pointer. It was at clutch time too. It was just a really bad communication piece. I don't know why. I'm guessing it had to do with the defense, but I'm surprised. I have to say, I'm kind of surprised Grant didn't make that adjustment in the middle of the game to try to, like, you had Pena looking good. Why didn't he play more? But that's a great question, Jack. And then I think that's all of our questions I have from all of you guys. Yep. Hey, don't go anywhere yet. We're not done yet because I haven't even cracked. I'm stretching out here because I'm about to open the comment section here and see what you all have to say. So here we go. SJ73. When will spring roster come out? Friday? Yep. Usually it comes out. I know the joke right now is, BC hasn't announced their coordinators. We're going to get the roster in middle of April. Yeah, I get it. But I think it's got more to do with they're going to have practice. They'll have the reporters there. They'll get the rosters. We'll get our answers, I think, on the roster on Friday for practice. And then it's weird. I don't know if the folks have had a chance to look at the practice schedule yet. BC is off for like a week and a half after, because spring break happens. So they come in, they probably do some weigh-ins, do a little bit of meetings, and then they're gone for a while. So it's going to be a long layoff in between. Okay. So we also have Len Suber, who's always one of our loyal listeners, saying, hey, AJ, Hafley gets fired. Who would you be your top coach to replace him? I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, believe me, I know a lot of folks out there. Chesney from Holy Cross. I would love that. I mean, I would be okay with that. He's an offensive minded coach. They're a team that's won, and I'm big on the mind of you win anywhere. I am a little, I would, if he was to come here, I would love to surround him with recruiters again, because I'm not sure what he can do on that end, but hey, the guy's got a good young offensive mind. So I would say Chesney, the guy from Holy Cross. And I think they could get him if they wanted to, but we'll have to wait to the end of this year to see where they go with that. Will BC have 1,000-yard rusher from Marty Party? No, they will not. And I don't think it has to do with the offensive line having issues here. I think it has more to do with there's enough backs that the ball's going to move around more. I think you'll see Pat Garwo do some stuff, Alex Broom, Kai Robichaux, maybe even a little bit of Cam Barfield. I just see them spreading it out too much that you don't have like a feature back that is just like, a ground and pound guy like AJ Dillon or Andre Williams. I know 1,000 yards divided by 12 is like 85 yards per game. 85 yards per game, excuse me. But I don't see it happening. Jeff Shield, if you had to pick today for the 2023 season, would you rather have McNulty back or the upcoming duo? I'd rather have the upcoming duo. I think Chodzinski is going to be a big upgrade. He's an established guy who has done this for years. He's one of the brighter offensive minds, I think, in the last 20 years in offense. And I think Shimko's done a nice job with Emmett Moorhead, so I'm okay with this. I don't think McNulty did a good job last year in terms of like adjusting when your offensive line wasn't working. So I think this group is a good one. And then Party Marty says McNulty didn't get a fair shake with that O-line Half gave him. Yeah, I guess so. I think that's a fair point too. But that's it for today. This is AJ Black. Thank you all so much. This was a fun episode. We'll do some more mailbags as we get into, especially during the summer when there's not so much to talk about. And I know you guys have some great questions. I want to let you know if you want to get some great recruiting information. Tomorrow, I will have the full visitor list up on Eagle Insider. If you want to know who Jeff Hafley has on campus, there's some interesting names. I also have our big board. I'm going position by position with insider knowledge. I'm not telling you guys, I'm not going through just like an offer list and listing them. I've talked to people. I know who's coming on campus. I know the big names that they're looking at. And I'm doing it position by position. I'm giving you the priority targets. These are the players BC is absolutely going at hard. You're going to want to know about it. We have quarterbacks and running backs already up. I should have wide receivers either up tomorrow or Friday, and we're going to continue just trugging along. I have every position. I have a big board. So if you're interested in recruiting, head over to Eagle Insider and sign up. Thank you so much. You can follow me on Twitter at AJ Black _BC. I'm heading out. We'll see you again soon.